so many ways for people to show their emotion, their pride, their resolve after something like this. The Pentagon unfurling a huge American flag cascading down the side of the Pentagon, all in preparation for today's ceremony. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel, head of the Joint Chiefs Martin Dempsey will lead a private ceremony there for survivors and for victims' families. American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon at 9:37 on that day. 184 people were killed. Right now it is 9:03, the moment the second plane hit the South Tower in New York. A moment of silence underway.
Klaus Botha,
Carol Marie Bouchard,
J. Howard.
You hear the names of the victims being read aloud by family members, and not only the names, but you see the photographs there, and you hear numbers like 2,977 people, but to each of these, the number's one, the one person they lost, the one person that made a hole in their life, and the person they're still remembering today.
Breaks my heart hearing those names, and it feels just as raw in some ways as it was 13 years ago. And you think about the children of these victims
that have grown up,
who never got to meet their parents or can't really remember them because they're so young, and they're reading the names there now. It's just heartbreaking.
Sure, certainly sacred ground there in New York City right now. A look at Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and that's a set aside, other places being in the middle of cities there. Shanksville, a very desolate field there, and that field is someplace where people stop, pause, and look. Not seeing much, but just kind of the plant life there, but remembering the terrible moment when the Flight 93 crashed in.
And Brad, the Piedmont Triad has a special connection. A Piedmont woman will be remembered today during the ceremony in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Remember, Sandy Bradshaw was from Randolph County. She lived in Greensboro at the time. She was a flight attendant on board Flight 93. Passengers were able to overtake the terrorists, and that plane crashed into that field that you saw there. Bradshaw's children will take part in that ceremony today, which starts at 9:30.
You mentioned the children and her children growing up there, but obviously old enough now to be a part of that and to remember and to recognize their mom.
And we feel that, knowing that a member of our community was lost during this terrorist attack. But you think about that, so many people died that day. It really impacted people everywhere, not just in the United States. There were people from all over the world that were killed.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, there are several events going on around the Piedmont today as well, including at the Triad Carolina Field of Honor in Kernersville.
Fox 8's Carrie Charles is there this morning. Carrie, it's a beautiful memorial and something very significant going on display there.
Yeah, that's right. You won't see me during this live shot, but the gentleman you're looking at right now at the podium is Tad Tadlock. He was on the 61st floor of the South Tower on 9/11, and he is sharing some remarkable stories about that day and what this day means to him. We were talking just a moment ago. I heard you and Shannon talking about the 2,977 lives lost, but so many other lives also affected. You spoke about those numbers not just being numbers alone, but they also have names and family members that go along with them. So many other lives touched as well on September 11th, and those stories are being shared throughout the country today. One of those right here at the Carolina Field of Honor. I want to pan down and show you the beam that was unveiled just a short time ago. This beam was removed from the South Tower. It was brought here from D.H. Griffin. Brought here as they went up and did some work in that area and helped with recovery efforts. A very solemn event out here. So many people in the community coming together to pay tribute to the first responders, as well as just the victims who lost their lives that day, and a number of first responders out here as well from a number of different departments and different ranks. They all here for the same cause. Brad and Shannon.
Beautiful moment out there. Carrie, thank you very much for bringing us that live coverage as you see people people who were there that day reflecting on it.
Right, and David Griffith Jr. was one of the people who went up there with D.H. Griffin and spent months and really was the head of the cleanup project there. So a real connection to the triad, and being able to have that beam there at the memorial is very special to all of us.
Great connection there. You know, as people gather at the 9/11 memorial to remember those who died, many survivors also take that opportunity to think back to that day.
Marvin Scott talked to some survivors, including a woman who was working in one of the towers and a firefighter who was the only one in his unit to survive.
For the past 10 years, Engine Company 235 from Bedford-Stuyvesant has held a memorial tribute on the eve of 9/11.
Firefighter Nick Chiafalo. Firefighter Francis Esposito.
Engine Company 235 lost 6 firefighters that day.
Unfortunately, on that day, we lost everybody except the chauffeur.
We do have to carry it with us for the rest of our lives.
Firefighter Phil Scarfy still can't explain why he was the only one in his company to survive.
Yeah, I've questioned that as well. You know, there's no answer. I didn't do anything different that they didn't do. I was just very fortunate.
Out of the ashes now rises a new gleaming tower, symbolically 1,776 feet tall. In the footprint of the old tower is a memorial reflecting pool, bearing the names of those murdered by terrorists. Some stand in reverence and reflect. Others take pictures. Yellow roses rest on the names of loved ones lost. This tourist from Berlin watched it all on television 13 years ago.
I'm very sad when I see this. I'm feeling unwell because I'm so sad for all these people who died.
Laura Horowitz was a volunteer who helped feed rescue workers.
Sometimes it seems like yesterday, and sometimes it seems like forever. I have 2 teens at home right now, and they were babies at that point.
The new 9/11 museum was closed to the public in the evening to allow family members, first responders, and residents of Lower Manhattan to visit. The mood was described as solemn and tearful. Regina Caney watched the towers fall from her apartment in Soho.
It's still so very upsetting, even 13 years later. I have a headache from trying not to cry in there. It's overwhelming.
Karen Silberman was one of the lucky ones to get out. She was on the 99th floor of the South Tower.
Walking in there, it just brought back a lot of feelings of emotions, a lot of emotions going through. Emotions of remorse, unbelief, not believing that this happened to our country.
We're going to continue to cover the 9/11 memorials going on throughout the morning, throughout the country.
Yeah, after 9:20, we'll go back to live to New York and look at what's going on there. That obviously very significant, and you heard in some of the interviews there just how raw the emotions are this many years later. We'll continue our coverage throughout the hour, though. Other stories